It was in order.
Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. If you had them over, they would eat up all your food. It's time for therapy dudes.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Therapy Dudes. Dan Fox and Andre Karkamaz. We are sponsored by Boulder Psychological Services. Go ahead and visit boulderpsychologicalservices.com to get all your mental health needs met, or as much as we can. Um, we were talking about couples, Gottman's work, relationship stuff last episode. I think it was really huge to understand that, a lot of the reason why relationships fail is actually because partners don't attune to triggers and don't focus on de-escalation. And honestly, Dan, a lot came up for me when we were talking about that. I've read Gottman's work. I've applied a lot of this stuff in the relationships I've had in my life after I've read Gottman's work. But one thing I find kind of perplexing is a lot of people do show up with certain communication styles that I feel like make it really hard to de-escalate. And one of those things is like sometimes people would just issue the silent treatment or stonewall,
Yes.
stuff like that is like their primary mode of communication. So how would you focus on de-escalation when or like not feeling triggered when you feel like your partner isn't attempting to show up in the relationship or isn't attempting to understand or any of that? Like, how do you, within yourself, go, okay, well, the only thing that matters right now is for me not to be triggered while I'm feeling invalidated, or I know one of those stories pops up in your head about how this person is actually, maybe a narcissist or something because they don't seem to care. And then just focus on de escalation, which is seemingly what that other person wants anyway.
Right. So what Gottman I think would be bringing up in this situation is that it's not merely de-escalation, recognizing triggers and avoiding those. That that helps to keep a bad situation, a conflict from getting worse, right?
Right.
It's not just that we need to, pull out the weeds, so to speak, from the garden, but we've got to actually be growing something too. And
The friendship.
the friendship and what you're describing in a relationship is a certain phase of the relationship where things have seasoned over time, right? Nobody's stonewalling in the beginning. There's a sense of like, a lot of connection, a lot of positive feelings
Right.
early on. And if that translates to really getting to know our partner deeply on a number of levels and connecting in a number of ways and being able to stay attuned, then we've got a good foundation. If that also translates to having repair efforts when we're in conflict, right? Like as a conflict is starting up, ways to just de-escalate, little phrases that we can use that are silly or funny or things that, work with our partner, agreements that we have to just kind of, let it go and take a breath and hug it out or something like that. Those those kinds of things can be helpful. One of those for a while earlier on that Rachel and I would use would be to say, "Oh, can I just do a reset on that? Like my bad. Like I that wasn't
That
I don't
wasn't my
like how I
best.
did that. Can
Yeah.
we like rewind?" And and that would usually work. The other person would sort of, see that as taking ownership of whatever, we were doing that was a little off, taking responsibility for it, wanting to clean it up, and they would like be like, yeah, let's do a reset. And it would slow things down, right? It would de-escalate whatever the conflict was. So those things being in place keeps that stonewalling from happening because it keeps that flooding from happening. So
Right.
I'm going to read you a quote from Gottman's book here about flooding. He
Okay.
says, and this, by the way, is The Seven Principles for Making Marriage Work by John Gottman. He says, recurring episodes of flooding lead to divorce for two reasons. First, they signal that at least one partner feels severe emotional distress when dealing with the other. Second, the physical sensations of feeling flooded, the increased heart rate, sweating, and so on, make it virtually impossible to have a productive problem-solving discussion.
Mm,
So usually when that's happening, neither person is in a very good, centered place to be able to make good choices and to have kind of a, relaxed understanding and all of our cognitive capacities able to like tackle the problem. There's just a lot of frustration going on, and often it's frustration at the other person. So
right,
even being able to identify I'm in a flooded situation. I need a break. Or my partner's in a flooded situation. They need a break. We need to de-escalate. Even that can be tricky, right? Because we're in that fight, flight, or freeze energy.
yeah,
At that point, fighting is often somebody's lead style, right? When their nervous system gets triggered.
right. So, okay, can I throw a scenario in
Yes.
that maybe we can look at through the lens of Gottman? Let's say uh, I've seen this because I've worked with a lot of couples, right? Let's say a couple gets together, they are very committed to each other. They want to plan a family and everything. The honeymoon phase kind of fades out a little bit. All of a sudden, um, like a flip of a coin, one of the partners changes. We don't know why. They just start stonewalling straight out of the honeymoon phase. They start acting like a completely different person. They, like suggest that maybe they're better off as friends. All this stuff starts happening, but there's a commitment there already. Like they're married. They just got married.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the partners is trying to communicate like, hey, what's going on? How come this is happening? And the other partner experiences flooding every time they're questioned. Like what's going on? Why is this happening? But staying silent in a situation like this, I imagine, makes the partner who doesn't understand. Let's say the woman is the one that's committed and the man is the one that's kind of flip-flopped, right? For context. Let's say the woman's asking the man, "Hey, why is this happening? Why are you saying these things? Why are you so cold all of a sudden?" The man is just stonewalling, not really interested in talking, gets overwhelmed every time she brings it up. And meanwhile, the woman is stuck, possibly like maybe she's pregnant, right? They just got married. She's
Right.
stuck wondering what's going on. Um, how would you address this in Gottman's work? Because I see stuff like this all the time.
Right. So I think the pregnancy one is a big one too. There was a statistic in Gottman's book about how birth of the first child
Hmm.
can often be something that creates a lot of marital distress. There was something like 60 something percent of relationships
Right.
suffer after the birth of the first child because there's just
There's
so
just
much.
too much.
Yeah, there's just a
Yeah.
lot of extra stuff going on, a lot of additional stress, financial stress, time stress, relationship conflicts,
Right. Yeah.
parenting
It makes
style,
sense.
right? So that that can fundamentally change somebody in terms of their priorities and their stress and what they're focused on, and it could change the relationship. So
Right.
I think this does go back to, some of the things that we've talked about in terms of the proactive stuff that we can do, which is really building the connection and the friendship and really wanting to attune to and help our partner.
So which one needs attunement or help in this situation?
Well, the person that is disconnecting is is not doing that proactive work, right?
Right.
And
Right.
and that's that's a change in commitment. And there might be a lot of reasons for that. And if people aren't able to communicate, then that kind of stuff ideally can get brought up in a different context, like couples therapy, where someone can help them really to look at that stuff and see if the person who is kind of pulling back is able to recognize what they're doing and reconnect with why they wanted to be married in the first place.
Right.
This
What would
it,
cause, well, go ahead.
it's not it's not like, hey, if you do all of these steps, everything's going to be perfect because some people aren't going to do the steps or will sort of, commit to it on paper, but not actually follow through day to day, month to month, year to year, right? And
Why not?
not all people are really like
Why would someone go to
wired
couples
to
therapy?
what's that?
Why would a couple go agree to couples therapy or agree to a committed relationship and then go to couples therapy and one of the individuals decides not to implement anything they're learning in couples therapy outside of couples therapy? Because I know you've seen this in
Yeah.
your work and I've seen it too. And I'm just curious, like what pulls people and in my mind I call this manipulation or pretending. What pulls people to do that? What would your take on that be?
I mean, I think a lot of this goes back to how somebody grew up, what modeling they got from their parents, what kind of attachment they had
Right. Yeah.
at a younger age. And that, if somebody is sort of more of the avoidance style of attachment, where if things get stressed, you just kind of pull back and go into your shell. It's kind of natural to do that when there's conflict or stress in the relationship. If somebody's parents got divorced, then one of the messages that they got was, things will hit a certain crescendo and then it's over. And so that might be the framework that they're kind of understanding things from. And not everybody has the tools in terms of the relational skills, the emotional maturity, and the willingness to do the work of being married and having a good relationship over time. And I think that's just part of, I mean, what, like over 50% of marriages end in divorce. So
It's a
it's
scary number.
right,
Yeah.
right. It's not as if that's going to magically become like 100% success rate just by having one person in the relationship look at all these dynamics. By looking at these dynamics, they might realize, oh, my partner really actually isn't practicing and doesn't care to practice these things that will help build connection and avoid conflict. Early on in the relationship,
Mm.
those conversations around conflict tend to have telling signs. And one of the early signals is whether conflict is staying in the lane of criticism versus getting to a place of contempt. Criticism is like, hey,
This bothered me.
yes, it's like you said you were going to be at basketball, and then you didn't show up at basketball. And then you said you were going to be at my house last weekend to watch the basketball game, and then you didn't show up.
Oh my God, I feel like you're talking to me.
What? I was talking to my spouse. And I didn't like that, right? Like that's criticism.
Yeah.
Contempt
Okay.
would be
I am sorry. I'll
contempt
be
would
there
be
tonight.
you
Yeah.
always do that. You never keep your commitments.
Yeah.
You're a flake, right? So it's name calling, it's
God,
all
is that
or
how you
nothing
feel about me?
thinking.
I'm
No,
sorry. I'm doing the
no.
best I can. I'm busy.
I'm doing the best
I
I can.
love you. Okay, I get it. I get what you're saying.
Right?
So
So if we can keep it in the conflict instead of the contempt place,
criticism is the furthest we go.
right, right. Yeah.
Not black and white.
Not black and white, not all or nothing, not name calling, not sarcasm, not passive aggressive energy, all those things that tend to kind of belittle or demean or shame our partner or take a position of sort of like superiority over the other person and think
Yeah.
that they're inferior and can't handle anything. All of that is, that's in the contemptuous camp. And that's going to slowly poison the relationship. And if you're looking for that in conflict, you can see where people are being healthy in their communication and conflict and where it's getting to these like more dangerous situations. So even though that switch might flip from like I'm all in to then I'm just like one day boop disconnected,
Yeah.
the seeds that that's coming are often available earlier, right? They're obvious if we know what to be
What to
looking.
look for.
And even
What
that is,
should we be looking for to avoid that? Like if you're choosing a partner, right?
yeah,
There's this popular term right now in our culture around this called love bombing. Someone seems perfect. They're telling you all the things you want to hear. They're really wanting to connect with you. You know, how are you going to see the red flag? Like what should we be looking for?
right. So I do think a lot of it comes around conflict.
So
And
you can't see it until the conflict happens,
well, I think it's conflict plus time so
right?
we can see our partner in a variety of situations.
Right.
The friendship building, right? It's not just about like love feelings and good sexual energy and things like that. It's about like really getting to know your partner and if they're willing to let you get to know them and what their family was like and how they're connected to other people and what their friends are like and what their career is all about. And I would say, some of this like get to know you process could be seen as like doing some stress tests. Like,
I think it's important to.
go on a camping trip, go
Yeah.
on a road trip, take a vacation to somewhere, go
Notice
visit the other
notice
person.
how they react to things or disappointments or right?
Right. Right.
Because
And
that's on their best behavior if they're having like a kind of intense reaction then it's an indicator of like how they do conflict later on, right?
yeah, yeah. And if they're only showing up in these sort of like bite-sized moments where it's a date or a FaceTime or something, but there's a lot of distant spaces in between, we don't know that person that well. We know what they're presenting when they're
Right.
on their game.
And we're all presenting the best we can in the beginning.
Right, right. And a lot of people, it's not like they're doing this to be consciously manipulative. They're just sort of attuned to, is this person into me? How do I, get them to like me because I like them?
Yeah, which is what kids do. That's normal. I mean, we're
And
wired
adults,
for
right?
that. Yeah. Well, yes. I, but the thing with adults is we got to limit the fantasy, right? That's the problem.
And
People
and
in the
and
dating
we
world
want to
live
try
off
to actually
fantasy.
show up as our authentic self instead of
Yeah.
some polished
We
version of ourselves.
we want to say, um, I like for me, for instance, I don't ski, and I'm not gonna. And I grew up in Colorado, and I think a lot of people think that's weird that I'm not like a mountain buff, and I get it. Um, I had a bad experience when I was young. I literally jackhammered down a mountain the first time I went. It was middle school. I'm pretty sure this is why I'm slow.
Wait, paint me a
Um,
picture of what jackhammering down the mountain.
it's literally like
Head over
ragdoll,
heels, flipping.
like so fast though I couldn't. I was trying to stand up, but I was just putting my head into the snow further because I couldn't tell up from down. I was in sixth grade, so yeah,
You're in sixth grade.
it was awful. So I was like, this isn't for me. But a lot of people, I imagine if I were to start dating, a lot of people would say things like, "Hey, do you snowboard? That's like what I love to do because that's what like 90% of people tell me as clients." Um, no, I don't. I'm just gonna say I don't. I don't want to try. I'm not interested. Not because I don't like the sport. It's just I already got like a routine. I'll go in the mountains with you. It's not appealing for me. And that's an example of like what a lot of people will do is they'll go, well, even though I had this like reaction when someone told me about snowboarding and that it was important to them, like I'm gonna pretend like I'm interested,
Right.
right?
Right.
These are things you shouldn't do early on. You should present as who you are.
Right. But there's this induction to try to twin a little bit with other person's interests and hobbies and
I
music that they're
I
into.
don't
And
think it's healthy. I
no,
just
I
like
agree, but there's an induction to do that to just kind of keep the positive vibes going and to be able to like keep the vibes going without feeling like we have to be twins
yeah.
and just like
I think it's more about curiosity. Like getting to know a person doesn't mean I have to, mimic them, right? Like they can feel seen and appreciated just by me being like, "Oh, tell me about that." Like, "Oh yeah, I don't like that music." Like I'm not a country music guy, right? And if someone is a country music gal and she talks about it, I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, I don't really like country, but like I can tell it means a lot to you." And we don't have to build our relationship off of a false foundation, right? Because she can understand me and I can understand her. This is something that I think a lot of couples early on fall into a trap around this as well. They establish a false fantasy together based off of values that they don't both inherently share, but they mimic those values because they thought, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose this pretty face or I'm going to lose this opportunity.
right, right. Well, and I think there's another fallacy in there that is that, if we share similar hobbies and interests, we're compatible, right? Like that's what it takes. If we did both like country music, this would work. It's like
Not
not,
really, not even
yeah,
close. That has nothing to do with compatibility, right?
right. Well, and I think compatibility is sort of like how two individuals connect, but there's also just relational skills that are in operation independent of whether two people are compatible. And they are things about like, when somebody's in conflict,
Right.
are they escalating or are they trying to de-escalate? Are they making criticisms but not getting contemptuous, or do they start to get into this all or nothing shaming place? And a lot of that, especially if we haven't done work on ourselves, is based on how we were parented when there was conflict. Did we have an authoritarian parent?
And this is something I feel like a lot of couples need to, like a lot of individuals need to work on.
Yeah,
Is like you've been modeled something in life. You don't even realize how dysfunctional it is. For example, I'll use myself. I was modeled a lot of very dysfunctional things. My parents did the best they could. They were first generation immigrants. But I'll tell you right now, my household growing up, the modeling I got will never help me in relationships. Never. The only thing I learned is that they stay together no matter what. Um, and if anything, that made leaving codependent or toxic relationships hard for me. So I really feel like a big part of relational work is actually understanding your blueprints to what family is, coupleship is, uh, how to do argument, conflict. And also, I mean, attachment is a big part of this. That's another part that you need to know about yourself. What is attachment? What are the holes you fall into, right?
right.
Like, how do you work through that with a partner?
Boy,
How do you come off?
yeah, that's good. I feel like this is a whole other level. We've done this in regards to our parenting style based on how we were parented.
Yeah,
But I think next time we should devote those sessions to our relationship style with our partners based on the relationship that was getting modeled for us in the relationship that we had with our parents growing
yeah.
up. That's a
And
big one.
and if anyone's sitting here feeling like judged or concerned about who they are based off some of the things we're talking about today, I would offer this. You know, I am it took me a long time to see like all my flaws in relationship. It took me a very long time. I did not see it. I was told certain things, I brushed it off. I was unable to see my part in a lot of things. And it wasn't until I went to grad school where I really started to see, oh, like I'm doing this. And, I had to get an education and go pursue my own therapy willingly to actually see all the dysfunction I place into the relationships in my life. And it was a lot of dysfunction. And it's not because I intended it or I was a bad person. And I want people to hear, like, if they feel like they are causing issues in their relationships or some stings that we talk about, it doesn't mean you're a broken or bad person. This is very common in our culture.
Yeah.
We're very disconnected society in this way. So you can work on this. And I am not perfect at all. And I've come a long way and I still have a lot of work to do. And Dan, we already know you're not perfect, so you don't need to say anything. We're there. Just no, you're to be honest, Dan, you do conflict pretty well. At least in our friendship, I've seen that. I don't know what you are behind closed doors. Um,
It's something that's definitely a work in progress. I remember
right.
my first kind of three big relationships, which were each, a couple years long, and started with me feeling like, oh, I was going to be with this person forever, and then
Yeah.
eventually getting suffocated, and
Right.
then
You had
eventually
avoidant
like,
attachment. Yeah.
I do, yeah,
Yeah.
and I would extricate myself from the relationship and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm free from this prison. And
Yeah.
after doing that iteration three times over the course of, I don't know, 7 or so years, um, after the third one, I realized, oh, like the imprisonment that I'm feeling in these relationships is in me. Like
Yeah.
I'm creating this, and
Yes.
I need to step away from being in relationships and really learn to understand myself and how to like, make myself tick and not try to like fill a void in a codependent way with other people.
Right.
Um, and very fortunately for me, after a I don't know, a year and a half or something, that's when I met Rachel, and I was just in a different place, and she was in a good place, and we just worked it out. We worked it out.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you. Good for you and Rachel. I think this is what I really want to drill into everyone who's listening is like super common. Don't beat yourself up. Just know, like, you can work on these things. We can rewire. It's a beautiful thing when it happens.
Yeah, nice. All right, we got to wrap. Like, subscribe, comment. Thanks for listening.
Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. If you had them over, they would eat up all your food. It's time for therapy dudes. Therapy dudes, take away your stress, put you in a good mood. Listen to them anytime you're calling unglued. Time for therapy dudes.
I'll be back.